everyone, I am Jamila Marta and your presenter for today. I will discuss the topic Learning Environment Standard Assessment. Have the learning objectives of this topic. Students will be evaluated using a diversity of assessment tools and strategies to provide multiple indicators of the quality of every student's mathematical learning and overall program effectiveness. Descriptive statement. A variety of assessment instruments should be used to enable the teacher to monitor students' progress in understanding mathematical concepts and in developing mathematical skills. Assessment of mathematical learning should not be confined to intermittent standardized tests. The learning environment should embody the perspective that the primary function of assessment is to improve learning. Let's have an overview of this topic. An important goal of this chapter is to broaden understanding of both the purposes and the tools of assessment. The popular conceptions of assessment is restricted to evaluating individual student performance by tests designed to determine, at the end of a unit of time or instruction, what the student has already learned. But assessment should also be used during the learning process to enable teachers to monitor students' understanding and to modify curriculum and instruction, as well as to assess the effectiveness of school programs. Assessment of individual student performance should be a continuous process that involves many types of assessment activity. Students should play active roles in assessment so that each assessment's experience is also an educational experience. This chapter therefore has three main sections dealing with alternative assessment strategies, students' role in assessment, and educational purposes of assessment. And I will discuss the topic alternative assessment strategies. But before we proceed to the topic, let me discuss the three fundamental educational principles which form the foundation of all assessment that supports effective education. The first principle is the content principle, which is the assessment should reflect the mathematics that is most important for students to learn, which means that schools has its own mission and vision. But in mathematics, they also have their vision, which means that all students should know and be able to do. An assessment should match this vision. Next principle is the learning principle, which states that assessment should enhance mathematics learning and support good instructional practice. It means that assessment should be learning opportunities as well as opportunities for students to demonstrate what they know and can do. Although assessment is done for a variety of reasons, its main goal is to improve students' learning and inform teachers as they make instructional decisions. As such, it should be a routine part of ongoing classroom activity rather than an interaction. Next principle is the equity principle. Assessment should support every student's opportunity to learn important mathematics. Assessment should promote equity because assessment should be a means of fostering growth toward high expectation rather than a filter used to deny students the opportunity to learn important mathematics. In an equitable assessment, each student has an opportunity to demonstrate her or his mathematical power. This can only be accomplished by providing multiple approaches to assessment, adaptation for bilingual and special education students, and other adaptation for students with special needs. Assessment is equitable when students have access to the same accommodation and modifications that they receive in instruction. In addition to the assessment that supports effective education, assessment should be an open process. Three aspects of assessments are involved here. First, information about the assessment process should be available to those affected by it, which are the students. Second, teachers should be active participants in all phases of the assessment process. And finally, the assessment process should be open to scrutiny and modification. Next is, assessment should promote valid inferences about mathematics learning. A valid inference is based on evidence that is adequate and relevant. The amount and type of evidence that is needed depends upon the consequences of the inference. For example, a teacher may judge students' progress in understanding place value through informal interviews and use this information to plan future classroom activities. However, a large-scale, high-stakes assessment requires much more evidence and a more formal analysis of that evidence. Lastly, assessment should be a coherent process. And the three types of coherent are involved in assessment. First, the phases of assessment must fit together. Second, the assessment must match the purpose for which it is being conducted. And finally, the assessment must be aligned with the curriculum and with instruction. These principles should be kept in mind as changes in assessment strategies are contemplated, developed, tested, and implemented. They should be kept in mind by classroom teachers and all others involved in assessment. For example, district committees selecting a standardized norm reference test, district supervisors or their department chairs analyzing data from a collection of student portfolios, and state mathematics content development committees reviewing proposed test items for the statewide tests. And now, let us move to the first section of this topic, the alternative strategies assessment. Making use of a variety of assessment methods provides a more complete picture of students' learning. Some types of assessment tasks provide information about students' abilities to perform mathematical procedures. Others involve high-level thinking and problem-solving skills, represent meaningful instructional activities, and/or invoke real-world applications. Stenmark 1991 describes some of the changes in mathematics learning that results from using these alternative assessment strategies. To students, they think more deeply about problems, feel free to do their best thinking because their ideas are valued, ask deeper and more frequent questions of themselves, their classmates, and their teachers, and improve their listening skills and gain an appreciation for the role of listening in cooperative work. They feel responsibility for their thoughts and ownership of their methods, observe that there are many right ways to solve a problem, experience the value of verbalization as means of clarifying one's thinking, form new insights into mathematical concepts, learn ways to identify the places they need help, and increase their self-confidence and self-esteem as a result of genuine interest shown by a teacher or classmate. Feel more tolerance and respect for others' people's ideas, focus their energy on exploring and communicating ideas about mathematical relationships rather than simply finding answers, develop strategies for conducting self-interviews while solving problems in other settings, find satisfaction and confidence in their ability to solve problems, and less look to the teachers for clues about the correctness of their methods and focus less on imitating the right way. And to teachers, they gain access to student thinking, enhance their ability to use non-threatening questions that elicit explanations and reveal misconceptions, strengthen their listening skills, show respect for students by being non-judgmental, use interview results as a source of questions to post on written assignments for the whole class, encourage respect for diversity by modeling appreciation of varied approaches, pose questions that encourage students to construct and share their own understandings, and feel reinforcement for letting go of teaching as telling. The first alternative strategies assessment that we can use is the individual and group tests. Traditionally, the dominant mode of assessment has been paper and pencil testing of individual students. This testing often includes both selected response items, such as matching, multiple choice, and true or false questions, and constructed response items, such as problems to solve or short answer, fill in the blank, or show your work questions. However, constructing good selected response test items is quite difficult, so many teachers rely more on constructed response items for classroom assessment. Some teachers check only answers while others ask students to show their work and provide partial credit to varying degrees. And more recently, individual tests have also begun to include open-ended questions. Those are the solve and explain your solution, since this provides more insight into student thinking. The authentic performance task. An authentic performance assessment starts with asking a student or group of students to engage in some mathematical task or investigation. Observation of the students as they work, questioning of the processes they use to solve the task, and examination of their final results are all standard activities that create useful data about what the students know and are able to do. Great care must be taken to be sure that the task is rich and motivating enough to produce sustained effort on the part of the students, because tasks which are boring or too simple will not be very good performance assessment task. Next is the portfolios. A portfolio is a showcase of student work. It is a place where students can demonstrate their mathematical power in specific and general ways. Student thinking, growth over time, mathematical connections, student views of themselves as mathematicians, and the problem-solving process are each emphasized in creating, maintaining, revising, and assessing student portfolios. In addition, teachers should be working with students to regularly review their portfolios in order to establish short-term and long-term goals. What is in a portfolio? Portfolio includes the table of contents, introductory and self-assessment letters, long-term projects, daily notes, journal entries, excerpts from dialogue notebooks, test problems, physical models of mathematical concepts, mathematical models of real-world phenomena, interviews between student and peer, interviews between student and teacher, artwork done by the student, a mathematical autobiography, and others. And evaluation of portfolios may be accomplished in much the same way as performance tasks or open-ended tasks. Portfolios are also used to provide a picture of the instructional opportunities, the content area of programs, and anecdotal indicators of disposition towards mathematics. So next is the journals. Another assessment strategy being used is the journal. It's a small booklet or notebook section in which students write on a regular basis. A journal entry can be a regular daily part of the math class or something just done occasionally. It can be very structured, with the students responding to a writing prompt from the teacher or very free, with the students choosing their own math topic and questions to write about. Journal is not graded since teachers want students to write freely in it. The consistent aspects of a journal is that it provides a means of communication between the student and the teacher. It is a vehicle by which the students can express understanding, attitudes, delight, creativity, and a myriad of other responses. Students frequently have a hard time creating journal entries which they first begin to write them, especially if they are already well advanced in school. Teachers who have students write in their journals are, of course, obligated to read and respond frequently to the entries. But they will find many of the students' responses refreshing and original, and their process will be one of the most pleasant of their tasks. To reduce the amount of time spent reading journals, some teachers have student box or underline portions which they would like the teacher to read. And opinions vary on whether or not to give comments, especially ones that suggest correction or a need for improvement. Some teachers like to put comments on post-it notes so as to leave students' work unmarked. Journals frequently are a good source of information about student attitudes and misconceptions, as well as emerging classroom problems. Teachers can often find out more about the students' thinking and degree of understanding from journals than from most other methods of assessment. And the second to the last assessment strategies that can be used is the observations, interviews, and conferences. Observations, interviews, conferences, and questions provide teachers and students with numerous opportunities to assess progress. At the heart of these types of assessment is the student and teacher working in collaboration in order to ascertain the progress the student has made. The student can analyze her or his own mathematical work by focusing on the quality of the product, the need for revision, changes or additions to be made, and different problem-solving strategies to employ. Performing an effective critical analysis of one's work is a process that students can adopt for use later in life in their careers. And last is the seminars, labs, and extended projects. Assessment may also include student presentation or the seminars, labs, and extended projects, particularly in the higher grades. These methods assure the connection between instruction and assessment, as well as provide opportunities for relating mathematics to other subject areas. These methods are especially appropriate for assessing students' ability to identify and define a problem and what they already know, to make a plan, to create and modify problem-solving strategies, to collect, organize, and analyze needed information, to discuss, review, revise, and explain results, to persist in work on a problem, and to produce a quality product or report. Possible topics for these types of assessment might include maps, gears and ratios, sound waves and music, traffic patterns, collecting and analyzing litter, studying local water use, census studies, lunch preferences, sport statistics, plant growth, measurement of parts of body, or nutrition. Now that we are done discussing the alternative strategies assessment, so our next reporter is Mr. Gerald Mataya, which will report the two principal or the two section of these topics. I hope you understand my report and you gain knowledge about this topic. Thank you and have a good day.